Hello and welcome to our latest GateDrop podcast with the MX2 World Championship actions starting underway this weekend for round one in Argentina. We've already previewed the MX2 class, so now we'll take a look at the MX2 class and dive into some of the contenders and riders to look out for the year ahead. Along with me is Johnny McCready. Johnny, I think the first place to start is really after the dramatic season last year. I mean, it was probably the best racing out of any championship anywhere in the world, the MX2 World Championship. The show that Tom Viala and Jago Geerts put on last year was just unbelievable, really. So I think there's no better place to start for Jago Geerts. And the main question is, will this be the year he can finally deliver an MX2 World title?
He should do. I mean, it was at Tampa Supercross, and I was talking to Vial about that season, and even he was saying that him and Yago were pretty similar speed throughout the year, and the final was like sort of thing you'll never forget, and the drama of it. Interestingly, he said the pressure wasn't as bad really on the bike as it would seem off it, even though he was the one that actually made the mistake that cost Yago the championship. But the speed those two were going at the end of that season, only Beniston was sort of the one that was kind of shown, maybe not for the whole 30 minutes, but he could run that pace at times. And they might be the two guys really going for this championship. Yago, I think, has to start as favourite. I mean, when it comes to speed, we saw at Redbud, he ran with Tomac and Tomac's best year of his career in America and one of Tomac's best tracks with only 10 days on a 450. So I think that underlines how talented he is. And even Vial again, when I was speaking to him at Tampa, he said that actually gave him confidence. Yago's performance at Redwood gave him confidence that he could be successful in America because that showed that his level was on the level of Eli Tomac, roughly, on the outdoor level anyway. So I think Yago's pace, not a question, his ability, not a question. But even at this nation's the second moto, when he was going for the overall win, he had a tip over, he had a couple of tip overs when it really mattered. Finland, I think last year when he was leading, I think if he hadn't crashed there, I
Yeah.
think he would have won the championship. That spiraled that pressure scenario. So for me, I think Gertz, although in the race there at Leerop, it was Kai de Wolf that won. And for me, he's the guy that if anyone's going to jump to that level consistently, it could be him. But it starts, I'm not sure, going to be quite there like the two Yamahas. But I think Yago has to start as favourite. It can he limit the mistakes if he's feeling pressure. And the guy to put the pressure on might be his teammate, Thibaut Beniston, because he's a pretty special talent as well. But Yago, for me, Yago's an amazing rider. It's just, can he keep his head together in the big pressure moments? Speed wise, he's amazing, and the way he rides a bike's fantastic. The only other thing with him is his last year, so he has to do it. He's going 450 next year. Again, that's a wee bit more pressure, and he probably should have won the title last year. But speed wise, we saw last year. I mean, the speed those two were going was pretty incredible. So he has that in his locker. But I think Beniston might be the guy to pressure him.
Yeah, I mean, as you've said there, it's going to be his last year racing the MX2 World Championship. Already signed to be a factory Yamaha rider for 2024. So he knows this is the year he has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is, this is probably the first year in his career he's going in as the favourite.
It's a
You know,
good
it's
point.
always
Yeah.
been him and somebody else. So that's
Yeah.
even more pressure to deal with. So if I'm Jago Geerts right now, I'm not even thinking about the championship. First half of the season, probably won't even think about the championship. Just think about the next race, think about the next moto. And if you ride the best that you can, okay, you might not win every race, but you're going to be winning races. And when you don't win, you're going to be top three, apart from the odd race where you crash. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to crash. So I think he just needs to forget about all everything
Thinking,
else.
don't
Just
think, just
yeah,
ride.
just don't exactly. Just do that,
Nike,
and
Nike should
just do
sponsor him.
that.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just go out, do it. Ride your motos. Very hard to do, but
Yeah.
if he can do that, forget about everything else. We all know he's probably going to be the fastest rider there. Although I would say, you know, he's riding against a lot of younger riders. Give those guys another off season. They're obviously going to close the gap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all the time in the sport. Somebody emerges that you don't maybe expect to be as quick. So yes, A, he's favoured, but B, winning a world championship is never easy. And C, these other guys are going to be trying to close the gap. and he's going to have to be on his A game and survive the season and try and avoid those mishaps that he had last year. But certainly in terms of raw speed and talent, he's the best there is in that class. So fingers crossed from his perspective, it can all go to plan this year, and he can finally win that World MX2 title that he's been chasing for how many years now? 3 or 4?
I think he deserves it for his riding ability, the
Yeah.
speed he has, especially after what happened to him last year. But
Yeah.
he's not going to get the title because he deserves it based on
Yeah.
brilliant moments from years past. He has to earn it.
Exactly.
And if you're Thibaut Beniston, do you try to put pressure on him even if you're practicing together? Do you start to play mind games? We saw at times he was almost getting in between, or he wasn't necessarily letting Jago past halfway through the season. Not that he should, but remember there was a bit of debate about team orders and stuff. Now it's going to get really interesting because Beniston might be the guy, I would say, De Wolf as well, who will come in here thinking they have a shot at winning a title. How will the team inter-team situation go between the mechanics? How does the team manage that? How does Jago face having his younger teammates suddenly coming into form and being the guy that he's battling? And with Tom, obviously, they didn't really do much during the week. They were separate teams. Everything was separate. They saw each other at weekends. Beniston could be there every weekend, depending on where the training programs work. He's going to be in the same truck as them. It's going to be a very different dynamic. And if you're Beniston and you know Jago maybe has issues with pressure, at least that's what you're going to tell yourself. Is he in a better position to try and press those buttons in Jago during the season if they both get off to a strong start? Could be something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, at this stage of the season hasn't even started yet. I don't think I'd be worrying too much about mind games now. I think I'd just be worrying about
Yeah, but
trying to
I'm
start the
I'm
season
getting
well.
excited.
Yeah, you're getting very excited. Start the season well and then go from there. But what I would say is, Benny Stant isn't going to be under anywhere near as much pressure
No,
as Jago Geerts because, yes, he wants to go to America, but he's still going to be racing MX2 GPs in 2024 before maybe going in 2025. So he's got 2 years to win this world title, and he will believe in his ability to challenge this year. But it's not a disaster if he doesn't win it
he's
this year
everything to
because he's
gain and
got the
nothing to
year.
lose. Whereas
Yeah,
Jago's
exactly.
everything to
Yeah,
lose and a world title that he
yeah,
feels he should have had last year to
yeah.
gain type thing. So
E-
for me, it's going to be interesting
Exactly.
to see how that
Yeah,
dynamic works.
exactly. Another thing I would say is, as amazing as Jago is on a bike, I don't think he maybe has that fear factor that maybe a young Jeffrey Hurlings, a young
Yeah,
Jorge Prado, or a young Ken Roxon had. They were very, very mentally strong, and unfortunately, Jago, I mean, last year he was very, very unlucky, but he's had a few years trying to win this title, and he still hasn't done it. And I don't think he would be as mentally strong as those guys have just mentioned. So I think the guys racing him maybe won't fear him as much as they would one of those other riders. So if they start getting wins, it could be a big confidence booster for them, and then it's wide open. But Thibaut Benistad is him, Kyle Woods, but I think we're forgetting about Simon Lagenfelder. I mean, he finished third in the world last year. I know he only won one GP at Mallory Basin, but consistently he was there,
yeah, he's
a regular
consistent, but
podium guy. But I think he will have stepped
consistent
it up over
speed
this
though. Does he
winter.
have it?
I think this year, I think he will because
Mm,
don't forget, he pretty much, the bike last year wasn't even great for VL,
that's
and he's
true.
elite. And I think the bike will be better this year, and I think another off season. But then again, there might be a bit of pressure on his shoulders, which he's not used to. So can he deal with that? We've seen Matteo Guardini this time last year. He was
Yeah,
expected to challenge for an MX2 World Title, never really happened. Can Lagenfelder deal with that? That's a question mark. But I think if pressure doesn't get them, I think he'll be there or thereabouts because MX2 consistency near pays off more than it would in MXGP because they're pretty wild in MX2 compared to MXGP. So if you're on the podium every week, win 3 or 4 GPs, that could win this title for all we know.
yeah. I think those are probably the big three. We'll just go to Kai de Wolf here as well. Probably one of the most talented riders, naturally talented riders. Last year was slightly up and down. I think he got injured as well at one point, but we saw at Lommel what he can do. We've just seen at Leerop what he can do. It was good in the sand, but I felt his hard pack riding definitely improved last year a lot. And again, as the season went on, my issue with Kai is can he get the consistent starts? He's bigger, taller than Jago taller than Benetton. If he can get the consistent starts, I expect him to kind of be there. It might be a year too early to really go for the title in terms of he doesn't have the experience of going for one if he's in the mix. But I think he needs the starts. I don't think he's going to come. Those Yamahas last year were consistently starting at the front more often than not. Guy was a bit hit and miss. Even in pre-season, he's been a bit on and off with the start. So I think he needs them. And then the more wins he gets, the more experience he gets. He's so young and so talented. I don't think getting the wins and podiums is going to be a problem once he gets going. But I think he's probably the third guy in line to go for the title. And I love watching him ride because he's so exciting on the bike. You can see his personality and desire with the way he rides. It's pretty cool. So I think he's going to be a thorn in the side, but he's also got a teammate who's looking really good in preseason, and that might spur him on as well. And obviously with Rowan, which for some reason he always seems to go under the radar. But I think the Wolf has a very high ceiling. I'm not sure we've seen anywhere near to what his potential is going to be. He was the guy that even Jet Lawrence admits was able to beat him when Jet was in 85s coming up. So that's the sort of level Kyle Wolf has.
Yeah, kind of. If he certainly rides with his heart in his sleeve in that respect, it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of Hunter Lawrence in that way.
Yeah.
They both let out in the track and give it everything they have. I mean, last year he was third in the world until he
Mm-hmm.
got injured, but he actually got knocked down by
Yeah.
a car when he was cycling, so completely off the track. Wasn't even his fault. So we'll never know now if he would have been able to stay third, but he was certainly riding well, and he missed a lot of GPs, and when he came back, he needed time, I would say, to get to the front again. But he was riding well towards the end again. So I think for him, it's important to stay injury free this year, last the season, and he'd certainly be a consistent top five guy. Will he win enough to challenge for the title? I think that he hasn't even won a GP yet, so
Mm-hmm.
I
One
think he
step at
needs
a
to try,
time.
yeah, one step at a time, exactly. And we'll take it from there. But yeah, I mean, this Nestan Husqvarna team, it's a hell of a team. I mean,
It's
it's
almost
not
like the
often
Yamaha team in
it
MXGP,
will
isn't it?
it's
It's
it
like,
it
woof,
it's not often that Husqvarna has a better lineup than factory KTM, but
no.
this is where we are at the moment. I mean, if the way Lucas Conan is riding, Rohan was actually quite good for his first race back there. So the way they're riding, kind of will maybe the first question will be try and make yourself Husky number
Number
one rider
one.
first,
The
and
guy
then
that's
once you do
number one
that,
on that team would probably
yeah,
be the world title
yeah,
challenger, you would
yeah,
imagine, to the two Yamahas. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, Lucas Conan's coming in with no fear. I mean, people don't realize how quick this guy was riding at the end of last season in the MX250. I was at Lommel and he was just phenomenal. He was going 5, 6 seconds
I
a
was
lap
there
quicker
too,
than
yeah.
anybody, and just unbelievable. And some guys when they go up to MX2, they maybe struggle mentally. They maybe don't really believe they should be at the front of MX2. But as we know with the Conan twins, their big goal is to go to America. So he'll probably win a GP and happy days and just worry about next week again. I don't think the emotion, I don't think I'll get to them of it all because their dream is to go to America. So this is just a step in their careers, really. So I don't think they'll let that get to them. And Ron van der Moostijk just can't stay injury free, which is really annoying because again he's such a good talent. You love to watch Kai World ride, so do I. But I really like to watch Ron van der Moostijk ride because
Yeah, he's
technically
smooth.
he's
Yeah, he's
very
really
very
good.
good, very smooth to watch. Again, he had everything to be probably at least challenge for an MX2 GP World Championship. Probably not going to happen because this is last year. He's been out of racing for over a year, so I'm not expecting fireworks to start of this season. I would actually prefer it maybe if he started slow to build and then survive the season
Mm-hmm.
because he has to put himself in a shop window to get an MXGP
He
ride.
should be
That's
good in the
that's
450 though, his
yeah,
style. So if he
yeah,
can get
he should
do the
get
job
the
this
ride.
year, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's probably
exactly.
a
That
main
yeah,
goal as well. Not
yeah,
just I want to be world
yeah,
champion. It's
yeah,
be up there and show what you can do in a 450
yeah.
potential anyway.
Exactly. But just on MX2, there's actually only three of the current MX2 GP riders that have actually only won a GP.
Good start.
You know who the three are? I have another stat after, but
Jago Geerts, Beniston, and
you should get the third one. You see, you literally.
Langenfelder.
Yep. They're the three.
Yeah, yeah.
So what
Thank you.
I'm expecting this year is a
UGP
lot of new,
winners.
yeah, new
Yes,
GP winners.
yes. We're on
And
the same wavelength. Yeah.
here's another stat for you. There's only been two of the current GP riders that have held the red plate.
Oh, Jago Geerts and Simon Langenfelder.
Yep, because he won
Yeah,
the first round
yeah,
last
yeah,
year.
yeah.
So if somebody new can win the opening round in Argentina, they'll not only have won their first GP, but they'll also have the red plate for the first time in their career.
Lucas Coonan.
So
Could he
honestly,
go to the first GP, win the overall, and leave with a red plate?
and his rookie
You
season and
can't
his
rule
rookie
that out.
MX. Well, it's not his rookie MX2, right? I suppose he had, but
Yeah, rookie season for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
rookie season.
The
You can't
thing,
honestly, MX2 is so wide open. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody like Adamo went and won.
yeah, he's
Honestly, the
been
way,
looking.
yeah.
The thing about Lucas, especially we'll get on to Sasha later. I know he's your favorite Coonan, but the thing about Lucas is in the 125, like 2 years ago, they were riding the MX 125 and Lucas broke his collarbone in Matterley Basin,
Mm-hmm.
second version
Mm-hmm.
at round one. By the end of the year, he was the dominant rider in the
Yeah,
class. Go to EMX 250 last year, couple of
didn't get a
rough
point.
rounds.
Didn't get a point at
Yeah,
round one.
figure it out. End of the year, dominant rider in the
Yeah.
class. So now, not to say he'd be the dominant rider in the class at the end of MX2, but I was thinking it'll take him the first half of the year. He'll be good, top 10, 5 to 10. By the second half of the year, he'll be podiums, top five, maybe going for a race win here and there if things line up. But it's like he's almost taken a step. He's done that step over the winter. Now, I know he has to still deliver the results in a full class, but speed wise, with his two teammates, he's probably seeing the speed. It's like he's taken that first half of his previous 2 seasons and done that development, and he's coming in on a top five level already. Now, he still has to do it, but to come out in pre-season with that speed is so impressive so quickly. And again, I suppose you have to remember that Sasha's been quick too. He's been sort of top three, top five. Now he makes more mistakes. He's about half the height of his brother, so I don't think that helps if there is mistakes. He's more aggressive, but even his speed was good in comparison to the GP regulars. They're now on factory bikes. They're getting help from the likes of Joel Smith at KTM, good people around Lucas at Husqvarna. They've good teammates who are on the elite level. So they're seeing all this stuff for the first time and they're so talented. But they're 16 still, maybe just turned 17.
Yeah, 16, I think,
So
maybe 17. Yeah.
they're really, really young. They've got teammates that are they're seeing the speed, they've better bikes than they've ever have, and maybe that progression's coming quicker because of everything they have around them. And unfortunately for you, because you don't want them to go to America, speaking to Roger DeCoster in America
Either
in
going.
Tampa, and he knows exactly who they are, and he's head of KTM over there. So it looks like they're already on the radar, at least of obviously KTM with the Pit Bar DeCoster connection, and Roger DeCoster's Belgian. So he's going to be keeping an extra eye out on them. On the rate they're going, they could be the new Lawrence brothers in America in a couple of years. America probably don't know who they are yet, but it's not going to take long. But like Jet,
Yeah, yeah. America have no idea who the Conan brothers are, but little do they know that if they get their way, they'll be there in 2025 racing in America.
yeah,
Whether that's
we'll
Supercross
see.
or not, that's a different story. But they
Yeah,
definitely want to be doing outdoors in 2025 in
but there,
America. So
there's but for
so
anybody that hasn't seen them ride, I mean,
yeah.
Shash is really small, but with someone Lommel, he shouldn't have a. He should. You look like he should be on 80, and he's running EMX 250 top three around Lommel, just leaping over them bumps with every sinew of muscle that he had in his small body to get jumping over those bumps. And I think he's maybe smoothed out, but Lucas has the height and the maturity and the smarts to I think deliver this year. It might take Sasha a year or two, especially with growing, maybe to calm down a wee bit. But Lucas, right here, right now, as we look at pre-season, looks ready to deliver in his first season straight away.
Yeah, what I would say on the Conan twins is, I mean, if you go back 3 or 4 years ago, okay, they were highly rated in Belgium, but in terms of results, they hadn't really done that much.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Kyle Wolf, for example, in '85, you sort of knew he was destined for
Yeah,
greatness. The Coonan twins, you weren't really sure. Since they've signed for Bud 2 years ago, just
yeah,
I
it's just
suppose
one.
3 years ago now, the improvement's been crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and already to be in MX2 GPs, phenomenal, really. The improvement they've shown now, and Lucas very calculated. I think he
Yeah,
uses his brain a little bit more, like what Paul Mallon says. Sasha wants everything done yesterday and
yeah,
just
yeah.
pins it, and he's actually already injured, so he's not even going to be racing Argentina.
Great.
So that's a bit
I was really excited to
of
see him. He
yeah,
probably would have whole shot and
yeah. He
went absolutely mad.
gets very good starts, which is a positive, but maybe just chill out a little bit. But I'm sure he'll
Mm-hmm.
get there because he's got the talent, that's for sure. part of me thinks he should probably be at an AMX 250 this year because that's the class where you learn all that stuff. But you can't turn down an MX2 GP factory KTM ride, so I do understand that. So, but on both of them, very good future ahead of them, especially Lucas because he's got the speed and he seems to be very smart, more calculated, and he keeps it in two ways more. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting future for those two. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think if Sasha can figure this crashing thing out and probably grow an extra couple of centimeters, the way he rides is pretty much like Ricky Carmichael, except Ricky Carmichael figure it out. So I think it's going to be a question of can Sasha get a bit of Lucas and be smart in the right moments because of speed and aggression. If that all clicks and lines up and he's the strength and the physical ability to ride 250, he's going to create an intensity and from lap to lap that's going to be very hard for a lot of riders to replicate if he can stay on two wheels over
Yeah,
the
well, I
next
mean,
couple of years.
he rides at 100/105% every lap, every corner, every
Sometimes
race. So
110.
sometimes riders, whenever they need to take a step back and go back to racing to 90%, they're just not
Yeah.
as good. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I wouldn't have minded him in the MX 250 because he maybe would have been able to find the balance. But MX2, he's going to get good starts whenever he comes back and he's in the thick of it. He's just going to be
Yeah, and with the
going
good start, you've got the
120%
adrenaline, and
again.
he'll see
Yeah,
Lucas, and it'll be
exactly,
like, I can beat
exactly.
Lucas, and then it's going
Yeah,
to be
yeah. So
go, go, go.
yeah, so I just hope whenever he comes back, somebody in his corner, hopefully Joel Smets, Antonio Crowley, very smart, intelligent people, can just tell him results don't really matter that much. Just go out,
He's Stefan and Harry there as
progress,
well. I
and
mean, he's so
yeah,
many world championships and
yeah,
Jeffrey Hurlings. It's
yeah,
like knowledge central over at KTM.
yeah,
Pitt Barrett knows about winning races as
yeah,
well. And actually, Pitt was
exactly.
on the wilder side. So if
Yeah.
anyone can probably knows exactly what's happening to Sasha, it's probably Pitt Barrett. So in terms of Dirk Grubel as well as being there and seeing it on the technical side and management side. So I think that's probably a good thing why he's in that team. He's all the knowledge that he needs around there. Obviously, he has to listen, but I think he's all the tools to be pretty amazing. It's just can these guys with 30 odd world championships between them get through them and if he listens to them, he's going to be pretty special, I think. But on Belgian motocross, takes us to Liam Everts. The Belgian talent all of a sudden is really blossoming. Jago Geerts led the way. Liam's steadily improved the last couple of years. The Coonan's coming behind him. Where do you see Liam this year? Again, similar position to Adamo, really. First year on the KTM, and they say steady progress. Last couple of years, sort of earned their way into these teams, but now it's your factory rider seventh isn't really what they're looking for. They're wanting top results, but I think even with KTM, you mentioned Husky, they're maybe the lead team this year, and it's a development year maybe for the KTM guys, but still they're going to be looking results, and it's about delivering that as a factory KTM rider now for Liam Everts and Andre Adamo.
Yeah, exactly. I think Liam, I mean, last year was his rookie season, but he got injured, so he didn't even last the full season. So I think it's important to stay injury free and learn more about MX2
Especially in the first
racing.
corner of the first round. Remember, he got taken out
Oh
at
yeah,
Matterley.
that's
That sort
right.
of
Yeah,
killed
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
he
I
came
think
back well, yeah.
and then yeah, and I think he got injured after that again. Did he
I think
not?
he had a
Can't
couple
really.
of niggly stuff, but he rode the end
Yeah,
of the year because he was at
yeah,
Disney Nations. But I mean,
yeah.
he was good when he got
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
the
yeah. He had a
pace. So
couple of motos in fourth, I think
yeah.
he finished. So,
Mm.
and obviously the bike, they were struggling with the bike last year, so the
Anomaly
bike
was
looks a
good.
lot better. Yeah, the thing with Liam is as the track gets rougher, he excels more. So at the
Mm.
rough, real gnarly stuff, he should be knocking on the door for maybe a couple of podiums, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the podium, but I
No.
think he'll mostly be a solid top 10 guy, maybe a couple of podiums and then in around the top five. I think that's how he'll do. But I have to
Yeah.
say, Andrea Adamo, well, he's got me excited, I have to say. In Italy, I think you were in Tampa, so you missed
Yeah,
Ponte
but I got lots of
Ago.
messages about how
My
fast Andrea
goodness,
Adamo was
I was completely, he was
when I woke up.
so good. Yeah, I was like, I thought Adamo might have been quite good, but to be that speed already, I mean, he was really, really good. Okay, Benny Stott was still quicker than him, but Adamo, a sprint speed to pull away, and then that to hold on, like the wind didn't even really matter that much, but he didn't really make any mistakes when Benny Stack closed him down. So I'm really looking forward to him. I think he could surprise people this year. I really do.
Yeah, I think those two are going to be interesting. First of all, because they're in that factory team, and then it's about how good can the results be? Can they get early top fives, early podiums, early wins, or is it going to be a just chill out, progress, and by the end of the season, that's where KTM expecting to be? I think for Adamo as well, he's maybe in a situation like the Coonans were. Liam has obviously had Stefan guiding him, so he's had access to that knowledge.
Hmm.
Although I see now he's working with Tony Caroli, so again, that's another thing that's going to really help him. But Adamo's going to have all that access as well. A full factory bike, and they're both pretty young. I think they're both 17, 18,
Yeah,
18,
18,
19 or
19
so.
maybe.
So
Yeah,
they're still
young.
teenagers. They've still
Yeah.
plenty of time. They've a good 5 years in this class yet. And I think
Mhm.
KTM are going playing the long game a wee
Mhm.
bit
Yep.
with Sasha, especially, and also Liam and Andrea. And Andrea might, but like the Coonans have in the last 2 years, and even over this winter, what seems to be from how excited you've been and what you've seen that Adamo's kind of already made a step
Looks
that
like it for sure.
and the season hasn't even started. Again, you have to
Yeah.
get the results, but if you're there already, then you're getting starts. Then you can learn quicker how to run with the elite guys like Jago and Beniston, the Wolf. So it's sort of a project at KTM, and it'll be interesting to see who can sort of rise up the fastest there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. Well, when these two guys, when Liam and Adamo were announced, you're kind of like, strange lineup for Factory KTM because you're so used to them having one of the title
Yeah,
favorites, but
Vial,
it's not
Prado,
like that
Jonas,
this
yeah,
year. As you
Hurlings.
say, they're playing the long game. But if you give one of these guys a good couple of first rounds in this sport, anything can happen. So it's
Kind of
it's going
feel
to be a
like they could be one of
yeah.
them,
Mhm.
probably Everett or Adamo could be the
Mm.
Langenfelder of last year.
Yeah. I think
You know,
that's accurate. I think that's pretty accurate. I think that could be it. And Adamo, I mean, his improvement's been pretty amazing when you think about it. I mean, 3 years ago, I think he was racing the MX250. I think he got a podium at the first round, but then he missed the rest of the whole championship. And then the year after, he signed to race MXGPs, and you were kind of thinking, you haven't even done much in the MX250 yet.
mhm.
But the first year in MX2, he was solid. He was knocking on
He's
the door for top
consistent. That's the
10. And
good thing
then
about
last year, he pretty much exploded.
him.
I know he was only 10th in the championship standings, but I think his riding was better than that. And he got a podium, which is probably his best day of his life so far. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him being a consistent podium guy this year, especially if that preseason was anything to go by. That's for
Yeah, he has
sure.
been consistent every
Hmm.
year. And actually, when you
Yeah,
say he
yeah,
finished 10th in your, well, at least in
yeah,
my head, you think he was around a 5 to 8 guy.
yeah,
Probably should have been the
exactly.
champion
Yeah,
because he had a lot of those
yeah,
results. So if
hmm,
he can transfer the consistency
yeah,
to this season and up the speed,
hmm,
then he's KTM have a very solid, at minimum, solid rider in the hands who could
exactly.
go on to achieve a lot in this 2023, 2024.
Exactly. It's going to be exciting, and Italy will be hoping for another superstar in their hands. One rider that really intrigues me, and I think probably a question mark in terms of you don't really know what to expect. Miguel Harap. I think last year it was a big year for him to sort of turn his career around because he didn't have a great 2021 season. But I have to say, 2022 was definitely a step in the right direction. He got a couple of podiums, I think. In Portugal, he was fantastic. He had the speed maybe to win that weekend.
Yeah, he's
It
really
just
good.
just when Indonesia, he had a couple of DNFs, and then maybe the bike reliability let him down a few times, which wasn't necessarily his fault. So even though he was sixth in the World Championship last year, I think again the riding was probably top five. What are you expecting from him this year?
Probably more of the same. I mean, he hasn't got the factory, and I don't even necessarily think it's the bike, although you need the reliability.
Yeah, I
I think
think
his
the bike's
bike's
fast.
the speed
It's
wise,
really
he's got
fast.
the bike,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah,
Steve Dixon does a really good job to be able to produce a bike that can run the factory
yeah,
riders. But if you're in there with Everett Smets, Caroli, Hurlings, and Dirk Grubel and everyone that's there, that's probably going to bring you on if you can withstand the pressure, obviously. So I think he doesn't have that going for him, but on the other side, he sort of had that when he was really young.
yeah,
So he's been exposed to it. The results weren't quite there. He was maybe too young to be able to take full advantage of it. sort of expect more of the same from Harrop because, as you mentioned, Husky have 3 riders, KTM have 3 riders now, so that's 6. Your two at Yamaha, we haven't mentioned Elzinga. He's the third guy there.
Oh yes, yeah.
Um, Bonacorze is he's
No,
MX,
yeah, MX,
well,
yeah,
he's
MX two
back to
fifty,
MX two
yeah.
fifty. You're gonna have Kevin Horgmo, and I expect
Mm.
Kevin Horgmo and Harp probably to be they battled a lot last year,
Mm.
quite similar a lot of times, and I think it might be the same this year. I think they'll be in that mix. I sort of expect around the same, in and around battling for that top 5 podiums. Yeah, wouldn't
Yeah,
surprise me, but I think it's hard for Harrop to do a lot better just in terms of because there's going to be so many factory riders next year.
yeah.
Can you beat them consistently all the time? Not make mistakes, have the bike not make mistakes. I think it's going to be difficult. Sixth, if he gets sixth again this year, to me, that's going to be very, very good again. But expect him to be fast, certainly.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people maybe underrate Harp a bit. He's still only 20 years old, I believe, as well. I honestly wouldn't be that surprised if he won a couple of GPs this year because when he's on it, he's really on it. It's just, you might not get that level every single week. But I mean, the way he raced to Portugal last year, I was gobsmacked at the speed of him that weekend. So I think with another off season with Dixon too, that'll probably help matters because he's had a lot of teams over the last couple
Yeah,
of years, and I think he's at a place now. Steve Dixon obviously believes in him and sort of lets him do whatever he
do
wants. So
something.
I
Yeah.
think that's pretty good that way. So he could surprise people. I think. You mentioned Horgmo there. I think it's a really big year for him. Very very solid last year. Very very consistent. Um, I think out of the top 6 last year, he was the only one not to win a moto, but he was fourth in the World Championship standings. So I
And he
think
was
that just
close a
backs
lot of
up
times
very,
and kept
yeah,
losing the
close to a
front
lot
wheel
of
of that
guys
the
to
first half of the
podiums,
year as well.
yeah.
So that cost him
But
points.
for him, he's got the pressure of putting himself in the shop window for an
Yeah.
MXGP ride in 2024 because obviously he ages out at the end of this year. So it's going to be interesting. I think if Hormo can do similar to what he done last year, I think that'll be a good season to be honest because other riders are going to step up as well. And yeah, but it will be interesting.
For Harrop, it's his goal to pretty if he does the same as he did last year, Yago and all's moving out, a couple of guys are moving up. Does that give him the opportunity to go back into factory again, a factory Yamaha, KTM, Husky, something like that? Is that sort of in order to be a world title contender? Do you think he needs to go to a factory team? And this year would be the year to show you can do it again, 2 good years in a row, or has he got the bike and the package at Dixon to be in the next couple of years a world title contender on that team?
I just don't see where he would go, to be honest, in a factory team because he's already been at FNH. He's already been Husky, which was an Austrian brand, and as we've touched on earlier, KTM and Husky already have young teams. So where would he go? I mean, I suppose Yamaha
Yamaha's the only one I was thinking of,
potentially.
but
That would maybe be the only
I
one,
think
but
if you put Harp on
they've
a
got
Yamaha, he
Bonnet
can win
and
races.
yeah, and Yamaha have Bonacorsi, so there'll be a decision
Yeah,
there to be made as
Van
well. And
Erp's
he's
coming through.
young. Yeah, I think to be honest, Dixon, I think the bike's quick enough. The reliability of it now and again, maybe let him down potentially. But you have to say Dixon's doing an unbelievable job. I think this is his 36th year or something in the Grand
Yeah,
Prix paddock, and he's the last
yeah,
of the British team managers. So
yeah,
credit to him. He clearly loves the sport and loves what he's doing. But to go back to your question, I think the bike in terms of speed could potentially maybe win a world
yeah. I think
championship
it's
with the right rider. And Harp
yeah,
could be that right rider. I don't think this year, but I think maybe when Geerts moves up. But then it's tough because there's so many guys coming through, and
you
you've
get
got guys
Coonan's
like
coming
Benny
through.
Stad,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So it's not going to get any. It might not get any easier than this year, but Harp has got a lot of talent, which I think some people forget about just because of a bad 2021 year. But it'd be nice to see him, remind the rest of the world
yeah. I
really
think
what he can do.
last year was a big breakthrough because
Mm.
he always had the speed, but then was inconsistent or injured.
Yeah,
I think last year he showed the speed to get these podiums, and when he wasn't maybe at his very best level, he was still
mm.
good.
Yeah,
He was still in the top 10, well in the top
yeah,
10.
yeah.
So his bad races weren't that bad, and his good races were very, very good. And you started to see
Yeah.
him really grow.
In fairness, I think that's all he sort of had to do last year, though,
Yeah,
just to get back the, in steps.
yeah,
Last year he just couldn't afford another year like 2021 last year, and thankfully he didn't. So it reminded people that he has what it takes to get on the podium. It's just whether enough he can win enough and be a regular podium visitor to challenge for this title, which is going to what it's going to hinge down to. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if he came out flying on Argentina. I think at the start of
He's good round.
2021, he got a podium in
Yeah.
Matterley Basin, but then it all sort of went downhill after that.
Yeah, he loves Matterley Basin. Unfortunately for him, he's to wait all year because it's the last
Yeah,
round.
yeah.
What about Rick Elzinga, factory rider this year, MX2 champ? Can he raise his game another level? And the advantage, I think that's obviously Harrop. He's had that before, but maybe he's reaching his peak years. If he was in that Yamaha team riding with Beniston and Geerts, I think that would bring him on. Is that going to bring Elzinga on? Do you think he has that potential to go to the next level?
Well, I think for Elsinga, he's under zero pressure. He's the third rider of the team, and his two teammates have all that pressure, mostly Jago as well. But so for Elsinga, it's just important to get used to racing MX2 GPs. I know he has had health issues in the past, so he's going to have more races to deal with, and not only more rounds, but also 3 races on a weekend now. So I think he just needs to adapt to all that and hopefully survive the season without a big dip, because he seems to be very, very quick and then he maybe dips. So if he can keep a good level and consistent throughout the whole season, I think that would be a good season for him. Because even in the MX250 last year, he rode really well at the start of the year. He was pretty much the quickest guy, and then he sort of dipped towards the end of the season. And
get some
just
health stuff going
yeah,
on as well
exactly,
there, but it's just keeping
exactly.
that
But that's what I'm saying. He
on
needs hopefully,
top of it, isn't it?
But it's nice to see him get this opportunity, because it was 2 years ago he told us that if he didn't get a ride to pet him, he was going to walk away from the sport. So it just goes to show, don't give up. If you're maybe a season away from quitting, always give it that extra season, and you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And there is another rookie I'd like to mention, is Cornelius Tundell. Again, he was very, very quick at the start of last year in the Fantic, and again, he had health issues. I think he got COVID, but he's with a team there, SM Action. They're now KTM, that are very, very good at developing young talents, and he'll be hoping that he's the next one in that production line, and going to that team and turning into factory riders. He's certainly one to watch out for as well.
Right. Who else is on your radar that could surprise people? We saw Joel Ritchie at Hawkstone. If you cut 2, 3 years ago, certainly on the British scene, he was the guy who was the next up and comer. His development has probably been slower than what, if you're coming from the UK viewpoint, you maybe expected. But he looks pretty at home on this Riley Yamaha. He was riding very well at Hawkstone. Now, he didn't really have much competition except Jack Nicholls, who was absolutely pinning it. Former MX2 podium guy in the MX2 class, but it was a mixed race. And in the super final, and when he got the good starts, Ritchie showed a lot of speed. He was battling the likes of Sean Simpson. So I think he's going well, but where do you see him fitting into MX2 this year? And any others like him that are slowly working their way up the class that could have essentially a breakthrough season in 2023?
Yeah, well, MX2's fast. There's a lot of fast riders. If Ritchie can be a consistent point scorer, I think that would be good. And then on his good days, top 15, I think he should
Yeah,
be
I think
pretty
he'd be
happy.
10 to
That's something to
15
work on.
on his
And
good days,
obviously,
yeah.
yeah, at the moment, obviously his teammate's injured, Hakon Fredriksson. But when he comes back, he's going to be fast if he can get the starts as well. But
If he
that
can.
that that might
Yeah,
help Ritchie
yeah.
as well, though, if he can, put the laps in with him as well. That might bring him on a bit too, instead of just riding around, at the practice tracks on his own as well.
Anyone else?
Camden McClellan, he's
Yeah, he's
signed. It's
good,
going to be
yeah.
his rookie year. JM Racing, JM Honda Racing. So he's going to be Brent Van Donnick's team. Yeah, my advice should be go out and do plenty of laps with Brent, because he's obviously riding well at the minute, and
Eat
I'm
whatever
sure
he's
that
eating.
that'll bring him on. I think with Camden is like in the MX250, he might not blow you away with speed, but very solid, very consistent. Got quite a lot of podiums last year, if I remember rightly.
He
So
sort of
I
sneaks
think,
up on
yeah,
you because, as you say,
yeah.
he's consistent. He doesn't always get the best starts. And even if he does, he maybe makes the odd mistake because he's maybe not used to
Mhm.
running the pace, but he generally gets there, whatever,
Yeah,
he makes it happen eventually.
yeah,
And so MX2, it could be the same. This year could be a building year and
yeah,
he'll
exactly.
breakout rides here and there. So probably another one of those long-term riders over the next 2 or 3 years could really start creeping up the standings.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this year is just all about building his rookie season. He's always kind of been a small burner, especially on the 250, but we do have to remember, I mean, he's an EMX 85 champion that don't give them
Mhm.
titles away for free, and he actually beat Kyle Wolf that day, so certainly got talent.
Who else?
Um, I'm intrigued to see how David Brazaras does coming
Yeah, he was
signing with the
quite.
F&H Kawasaki team. I mean, he hasn't had a very good preseason, so the less said about that, the better. But I think he's a very, very hard worker.
Yeah,
So I think that's good. You know, he'll work hard to achieve his dreams, and I think that's what the F&H Kawasaki team like. They like riders that will put everything into it.
Mark the Rover
So and
seems to be a
Mark,
pretty
yeah,
good trainer.
yeah,
As
very
long as
good
you're on
trainer.
the same wavelength,
Yeah.
he seems to get like look what a Hormo did last
Mhm.
year. He seems to be able to extract potential out of riders. So
Yeah.
Brasses could be another one of those riders where he can just keep building the potential and seeing how good and again confidence. You know, if you've Brasses and he might just need one good start, one good
Yeah.
result, one good qualifying time where he really believes he's that good, gets the bike sorted, trusts Mark DeRover, listens, believes what he's saying. That could all work to his benefit as the season goes on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he was maybe one of the older riders in the MX250 class last year because I think that was his third year in the class. So for him, it was the right move, I think, to go to
Yeah.
MX2, before he gets too old and then he might only have a year or two. At least I think he's 20 or 21 now, so he'll have a couple of years at least. And like I say, a hard worker with Mark Drover guiding him. Hopefully that can help him. But it might be a slow start to the season. That would be the only thing. But it's just a bit building for him, I think. And another Spaniard, Jago Martinez, he's signed
Yeah.
with Race KTM. Again, he's a rookie season. He actually aged out of the MX250, so he had to go to MX2. So it's nice to see he got a ride actually, and he's quick on his day as well.
So does anyone beat Yago for this title or are we going Yago to win it?
My heart says Jago. My head isn't sure yet. Ask me
I
after 4 or 5 rounds. What do you think? I think he will do it this
think
year
Yago
because
wins it.
I think
Yeah.
he will do it this year because if he doesn't, it's a complete disaster and he might never get over it.
He
How a talent like
has
that can't win an
is the
MX2.
experience and the speed. So I think unless something disastrous happens, he's injury always scares me a wee bit with Yago. A couple of years ago, remember he got the knee injury at the start of the year and he started off slow, and the next thing we knew, took that championship because that was in Vial was injured as well. So when the opportunity presented itself for Yago that season, you wouldn't say it was his fault, but again, something went wrong, even though he was good enough once he got over the injury. Last year, the opportunity was there again. He'd done everything right to put himself there, couldn't quite get it done. The very end, you say he's a bit unlucky, and I'm a wee bit afraid that sort of bad luck or situational things that seems to happen to Iago might happen strike again. You've Benistant kind of reminds me of Renault from 2 years ago, but I think he'll get it done. I'd have to be pretty happy for him because he's been through quite a lot mentally and with injuries and stuff the last 2 or 3 years to come so close and to be so good and never be a world champion. I think hopefully they'll go into 2024 MXGP as the MX2 World Champion from 2023.
I'm going to say yes because he's too good not to win an MX2 GP World
Mm-hmm.
Championship.
That was
So
more
final answer.
that was more concise, but basically what I was trying to say. Right, that's our MX2 preview show done. Annie, thank you, and we'll all get ready for Argentina. And again, as we mentioned, MXG, keep our fingers crossed that there's no big injuries. Rowan van der Moostag will probably be doing that too and watching that wave section this year. So hopefully the track is pretty safe and there's no big crashes. But as we just mentioned there, Yago's the favourite, but there's guys knocking on the door and there's a lot of young teenagers signed by KTM and Husky that are looking very, very promising. So let's see the progress they can make. And don't forget about the Coonans. I think 6 weeks into this season, you're probably going to know at least Lucas's name. Oh, Sasha might part right now. But anyway, he'll come good anyway, won't he, Andy?
Oh, eventually, yeah, for sure.
So right, there's the seal of approval. Right, that's us. We'll speak to you again soon. Enjoy the new season.
Ciao.